All right, so another interesting week in the markets. S&P, NASDAQ both hit intra-week highs. They both closed down slightly on the week. Bitcoin was down fairly, not crazy big for Bitcoin, but for stocks, it was down quite a bit. We're hovering around between 109 and 110 at the time of me making this video the day before. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about Bitcoin. I want to talk about a lot of things. First things first, if you get value out of the video, please like and subscribe. Always appreciate the support. So first things first, I want to talk about the stock market a little bit, and then I want to get into Bitcoin. As far as stocks goes, like I said, S&P, NASDAQ were both down slightly on the week. S&P was down about 20, 30 basis points. The NASDAQ was down about 50, so nothing crazy by any means. Mid caps were actually up. Small caps were about flat. International was down about the same as the S&P, NASDAQ roughly. So it was a modestly down week. But again, you also have to keep in mind that we actually also hit all-time highs earlier in the week. So like I said with stocks, when we are going into a Fed easing cycle, for me, it's pretty hard to believe that we're going to be down. Like my prediction over the next year, and obviously I could be completely wrong here, but my prediction is near term, I think we go higher. I think we hit 7,000 on the S&P before the end of the year. Eventually, I think it's going to get to the point to where inflation probably ticks up a little bit. And then the Fed will probably be like, hey, we've cut enough. We're going to have to stop cutting because inflation's ticking up. Now, again, technically, maybe we go into recession and the jobs reports continue to get worse, which would probably mean that maybe they keep cutting, but it's tough to say. The most likely scenario, in my opinion, is we continue to creep higher until the end of the year. And then I think that chances are, something will come out. Most likely the inflation will tick up to where that'll force the Fed to stop cutting. And I think that, some sort of bad news comes out in the first half of next year. We pull back 10, 20%, and then we close the year, I would say maybe modestly up. That's my best guess. But I do think that, we've had now back to back to back. I mean, assuming that there's not a crash in the last quarter of the year, but we've had back to back to back, very good years in the stock market. And at the end of the day, things do have to balance out at some point. So I think that we are overdue for a pullback. That doesn't necessarily mean some massive crash, and that doesn't necessarily mean, sell your stocks and go to cash. I think that that's a terrible strategy because nobody knows when the market's gonna pull back. And even if you do, chances are the market pulls back in part due to, inflation and whatnot scaring the economy, which means you're getting 3% on your T-bills, but inflation's running at 3, 4, 5%. You're still not ahead. You're not ahead. So my philosophy is always be a net buyer of stocks. I don't think there's any scenario where I wouldn't be a net buyer of stocks. Personally, I'm a lot more conservative. There's only about 4 or 5 individual stocks that I'm dollar cost averaging right now. And the indexes, I'm also not dollar cost averaging as aggressive as not nearly as aggressive as what I was 6 months to a year ago. Mainly it's a lot of the Bitcoin related stuff that I'm buying the most right now. I'm buying MSDR fairly aggressively. I'm buying, BITX I'm buying right now. Those are probably the ones that I'm most aggressively buying. So let's get right into some Bitcoin news here. That's basically my thoughts on the stock market. The first thing I wanted to talk about here is from Rajat Soni. Good follow if you don't follow him. Bitcoin is the perfect asset because it doesn't have counterparty risk. And this is the thing that, I kind of a little bit of a tangent, but I'm reading Mark Carney's book right now. For those of you who don't know who that is, that's the Canadian Prime Minister right now. And politics aside, I'm not going to talk about, but he talks about Bitcoin in one of the chapters, and it's very sad, I would say. I don't know if that's the right word, but that's the word that comes to mind, because he doesn't know what he's talking about. And the reason that it's embarrassing and it's sad is this is a guy that I believe he has a PhD in economics. If he doesn't, he at least has a degree. But first of all, he doesn't know the basics of how it works. I mean, he thought that, I don't know if he still thinks that, but he thought that at the time of writing the book, that the miners are the ones that validate transactions, and that's not how it works. It's the nodes that do that. The miners are not the one that validate it. So, and not only did he not know, there probably was at least one person that edited that book. They didn't know either. So that's the thing about a lot of people that I'm going to make a point here, so let me finish here. But the problem with these people is that there's so many people that just don't know what they're talking about. And another thing that he brings up is, and coming full circle here, is the idea that, Bitcoin can't work because it's centralized. Now, he didn't word it exactly like that, but basically what he was saying was, the people who run Bitcoin could stop you from using it, which is absolutely and utterly absurd, because the existing system, you can have your bank accounts frozen simply because you disagree with the government, right? And anyone who lives in Canada knows what I'm referring to there. And I mean, there's people that'll gaslight you and pretend that it didn't happen or whatever. But I mean, the facts are the facts, right? So the government in Canada quite literally froze people's bank accounts simply because they disagreed with them politically within the last, 3-4 years? And that's something that he doesn't bring up. But he's concerned that, people could be censored from using Bitcoin, which is not true, because you can run your own node and absolutely positively guarantee that you cannot be censored. That's the whole point of running the node, right? So my whole point here is, number one, there's so many people that have no idea what they're talking about. And not only do they have no idea what they're talking about, they're absolutely 100% convinced that they know what they're talking about. And the even scarier thing is these are people that have a lot of authority in the average person's minds. So my final point here is, a lot of people ask, what could make you bearish, or what concerns you about Bitcoin? And my response to that is something that not a lot of people bring up. Like, it's not what not a lot of people bring up, and it boggles my mind that more people don't bring it up, but I'm going to bring it up because I think it's really important. My thing that concerns me is, 80-90% of the population, it might even be higher to be honest, but let's just say 90%, are economically and financially illiterate. And what do those people do? They believe the people that have the quote unquote authority, the people that have, the degrees and all that stuff. And that's a big problem because, as I've just pointed out, a lot of these people don't know what they're talking about, right? They were educated in, 50 years ago, right? Like, the world has changed so much since then. And this is something that Michael Saylor brings up a lot, is that, the one of the big problems with the modern, financial system and the financial, the traditional finance people, is they were educated on how the finance space works from, 40, 50 years ago. And that's not how it works nowadays, right? I mean, look at Bitcoin, right? Look at Bitcoin. It wasn't even around 20 years ago, let alone 40 or 50 years ago. And that's something to bring up. But to bring it full circle here, the thing that separates Bitcoin from all other assets is that it has no counterparty risk. This is something that very few people consider when they invest. I mean, look at gold, right? Gold is it's beating Bitcoin on the year. It's up 50% this year, something crazy like that. And part of the reason, arguably the main reason, that people are investing in gold is people think that it has no counterparty risk. Now, theoretically, if you are holding the gold yourself and no one knows you have it, yes, it has no counterparty risk. The problem is most people aren't in that scenario. And not to mention too, it's like, okay, what if you have to move? Like, can you bring $1 million of gold? I mean, you can't do it over a border. It's going to be hard to do it. Even drive. Are you going to want to drive across the country with $1 million in gold in the back of your vehicle? Possibly, but are you going to want to do that? Can you send gold to someone in a different country? No, you can't unless you're willing to spend outrageous amounts of money. So, obviously, I don't want to come across as strawmanning gold, but it certainly has its benefits. But that's a big problem. Same thing goes for stocks, right? Same thing goes for stocks. The government can shut that down at the snap of a finger. Real estate, they can take it from you at a snap of a finger. Bitcoin, they cannot. I mean, theoretically, they can come to your house and put a gun to your head, but they can do the same thing with gold. They can do the same thing with your bank account. They can do the same thing with everything else. But at the end of the day, not to mention too, like it's easier to transact privately with Bitcoin than anything other than maybe gold. But again, the problem with that, and this is another thing that the gold bugs always bring up, it's like, what if the power goes out? And it's like, number one, the power would have to go out in the entire world for Bitcoin not to work. And number two, let's just say that does happen, some, Armageddon-like scenario. Let's say you are transacting with your gold. How do you know that you're getting real gold? Right? How do you know? You have no way, like some random guy wants to buy some food off you with gold. How do you know that it's real gold? You don't. But if you're transacting in Bitcoin, you do know that it's real Bitcoin, especially if you're running your own node, right? So this is very important. I wanted to bring this up for obvious reasons because this is what separates Bitcoin from all other assets. And with the world being like with so much polarization nowadays, an asset with no counterparty risk is going to shine. From Documenting Sailor, 13 trillion, world's largest asset manager, BlackRock, just filed for a Bitcoin premium income ETF. Now, this gets me really excited because for two reasons. Number one, the fact that BlackRock is doubling down on Bitcoin, not to mention too, Vanguard is starting to offer some Bitcoin products after being vehemently against it for the longest time. The fact, again, not that I'm a fan of BlackRock and Vanguard necessarily, right? A lot of people have their criticisms. I have some as well. But the fact that the largest asset managers in the world are accepting and doubling down on Bitcoin, like, they wouldn't be doing that if they weren't very, very confident that the asset was going to continue to grow, right? They just wouldn't be doing it. So this gives me so much more confidence in Bitcoin going forward because BlackRock and Vanguard are not going to be doubling down on it if they're not very, very confident it's going to continue to grow at a very good pace. And the other reason is, I mean, there's no guarantee. Like this could be some product that pays like a 7-8% dividend. It's not really that good, but with Bitcoin, it's more volatile than the stock markets, right? So chances are this is just going to be them. I would almost guarantee that it's just going to be them selling covered calls on IBIT, right? That's by far the most likely scenario. Now, the big question is, are they going to be at the money calls? Are they going to be, out of the money? Is it going to be a synthetic cover? Like there's a lot of questions there, but this really gets me excited because if this can produce like a 15, 20, 30% or even higher yield, this is going to be a massive ETF. Like this, if it can, let's say it can produce like a 20% yield and not lose, share value over time, I think it'll be an ETF with $100 billion in AUM at some point. Like I genuinely do. So this is exciting. From the Real Plan C, interesting, during this bull run, Bitcoin has found support and consolidated below the 200-day but above the 365 moving average 3 times. Currently, this zone is between 97 and 104,000. I'm not suggesting we will reach this level immediately or even revisit it at all, but it remains an interesting zone to watch. My base case is that we find support at or just below 111,000 and then remove our long-term structural bull market. This is pretty much what I believe as well. The only caveat I've always said is I think if we get like a significant stock market pullback, that will make Bitcoin go below 100,000. It's just inevitable. But if the stock market continues to be flat or be up, it's only a matter of time until we get, a 10, 20, 30% upswing in Bitcoin. My base case is I think that's what's going to happen, right? I think that's what's going to happen. A lot of people have suggested that, Bitcoin, and this is what we've seen over the last couple of years, right? We chop sideways for, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months. We go up 20, 30%. We chop sideways for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months. We go up 20, 30%. Like, I think that's going to be the normal going forward. And a lot of people talk about, the market cycles, right? But the thing that's undeniable about the market cycles is the halving the amount of new Bitcoin coming online is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller over time. Again, it cuts in half every 4 years. And what does that mean? Well, that means that the halving is going to become less and less relevant as time goes on. Right? It's just basic math, right? I don't even know how anyone could debate that. So the question is not a matter of if, the question is a matter of when the traditional cycles goes away. And again, it's only a matter of time. Now, again, you could argue that it's 50 years down the road, but the idea that it's not going to happen at some point is absolutely absurd. From Fold Bitcoin, together we're building the Fold Bitcoin credit card designed to deliver up to 3.5% cash back on every purchase. So this is, shakepay does this in Canada. It doesn't have a physical card. I don't know if this one's going to be a physical card as well. Unless there's something I'm missing about shakepay. It has the Apple Pay version, which honestly is just as good. You can still use it online and stuff as well. And again, it's cash back in Bitcoin. I think the first like 5 to 10,000 you spend is 2%, then it's 1% after that. But getting cash back in Bitcoin, again, 10, 20, 30 years from down the road, people are going to look at this as absolute genius, because eventually it'll get to the point to where even if you're getting like 1 or 2% cash back, 30 years down the road, you're going to look back and be like, hey, I just got whatever I bought there for free because Bitcoin's grown, 20, 30% per year. I got 1,000 Satoshis and now those, 1,000 Satoshis, whatever, I had to spend $100 to get those 1,000 Satoshis. Now those 1,000 Satoshis are worth more than $100. And that's the beauty of it. From Samson now, I will not be running Core 30. So, again, this is very important. A lot of people are not understanding how important this is. I think that what Core is proposing with Core 30 update is the biggest threat to Bitcoin since the block size wars. And arguably, it might even be more important, right? It absolutely boggles my mind why anyone is in support of it. There is arguably zero benefit to what Core wants to do. And there is such an insane potential downside to what they want to do. It's almost impossible to overstate. So, I'm gonna, there's a lot of people, Matthew Crowder's done a great job on this, probably better than anyone. So check him out if you want more information. But I think that what Core wants to do is just absolutely insane. And the last thing here is Strive is going to be merging with Semler Scientific. And with that, they announced the purchase of 5,816 Bitcoin. Combined, they'll now have 10,900 Bitcoin. Post-merger intention to monetize or distribute Semler Scientific's historical profitable diagnostics business. So this is something I think we could see more going forward. And I think this is actually a very genius idea in that, let's say you are you're a profitable traditional business. Rather than simply buying Bitcoin, why not take over or merge with a company that already has a lot of Bitcoin? I think it's a good idea, right? It's a good idea, especially when you consider, I believe Semler was trading below 1 MNAV, which means the value of their Bitcoin is less than the value of the company is less than the Bitcoin, right? So if you do that, and you go back to over a 1 MNAV, that's free money. Like that's just free money. So this is something that I could see strategy doing. And this is something that I think, like if you're Apple, if you're Google, like if one of these companies, like why wouldn't you do that? Like there are companies that have, 1,000 Bitcoin, 10,000 Bitcoin that are less than your quarterly cash flows. Like why would you not do something like that? So I think that this is very exciting. And I think this is something that isn't being talked about a lot. And it could be something that we see a lot of, maybe not in the very near future, but at some point, I think this is something we probably do see quite a bit. So anyway, that's what I wanted to bring up today. If you liked the video, like I said at the start, please like, subscribe, comment, check out those links below, and stay tuned for more.